The nanny's secret ***. Sarah's hands trembled as she adjusted her resume on the marble countertop. The lie sat there in black and white, *5 years childcare experience. References available upon request. She had neither. What she did have was 9 months of carrying this baby, feeling every kick, every hiccup, every roll. She had a contract that said she'd signed away her rights. And she had a heart that refused to accept it. "You come highly recommended," Mrs. Victoria Hartfield said, gliding into the kitchen in silk pajamas that cost more than Sarah's monthly rent. "My husband and I are desperate. Lily has been through 4 nannies in 6 weeks. She just won't stop crying." Sarah already knew this. She'd been watching from coffee shops across the street, from park benches with a clear view of the nursery window, from her car parked 3 houses down at 2 in the morning when the lights blazed on and she could hear her daughter's wails even through closed windows. Her daughter. No. Their daughter. The Hartfield's daughter. The contract was clear. "I have a way with difficult babies," Sarah said, and it wasn't a lie. She'd spent her entire pregnancy talking to the life inside her, singing lullabies to her own belly, promising things she had no right to promise. Victoria's perfectly microbladed eyebrows lifted with hope. "When can you start?" "Today." The moment Sarah lifted Lily from her crib that afternoon, the baby's screams cut off as if someone had flipped a switch. Those tiny fists that had been flailing opened like flowers, reaching for Sarah's face. The rosebud mouth that had been twisted in anguish curved into something that wasn't quite a smile yet but held the promise of one. Lily's dark eyes locked onto Sarah's with an intensity that made Sarah's milk let down even though she'd bound her breasts until they stopped producing months ago. "My God," Victoria breathed from the doorway. "What did you do?" She remembers me, Sarah thought. She knows. Before we continue with Sarah's impossible situation and the devastating choices she'll face, I'd love to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button and drop your location in the comments below. And tell me this, do you think a surrogate mother can truly walk away from the child she carried? Do biology and those 9 months create a bond that no contract can sever? I want to know what you think because this story goes to some dark places, and your perspective matters. Now, let's get back to Sarah and the dangerous game she started playing. Victoria posted photos on Instagram that night. Sarah, face carefully angled away from the camera, holding a peaceful Lily. The caption read, "Finally found our angel. Mary has the magic touch. Mary. The name Sarah had given for the position. Not her real name. Nothing about this was real except the weight of Lily in her arms and the way the baby's breathing synchronized with her own heartbeat. The Hartfields had money that whispered rather than shouted. James Hartfield ran a private equity firm that Sarah didn't understand but that apparently required him to leave at 6 in the morning and return at 9 at night. Victoria did something in fashion consulting that seemed to involve a lot of phone calls in French and packages arriving from Paris. They'd wanted a baby the way they wanted their Range Rover or their summer house in the Hamptons, as the next logical acquisition in a carefully curated life. Sarah had needed $15,000. Her mother's cancer treatment wasn't covered by their insurance. Experimental therapies never were. She'd seen the advertisement at the fertility clinic where she'd gone to inquire about egg donation, thinking she could make a few thousand that way. Gestational surrogate needed. Generous compensation. Help create a family. Generous meant $45,000. Enough for her mother's treatment, enough to pay off the medical debt they'd already accumulated, enough to buy a little breathing room. All she had to do was carry someone else's genetic material for 9 months and hand over the baby. Simple. Transactional. She'd convinced herself it would be like being an incubator, nothing more. But bodies don't work that way. Hearts definitely don't. The pregnancy had been textbook perfect until it wasn't. Sarah had felt the first stirrings of maternal attachment around week 16, when the flutter of movement became undeniable. By week 20, when the ultrasound tech said, "It's a girl," Sarah had started crying and couldn't stop. She'd shown up to the appointment with the Hartfields as contracted, had sat there while Victoria squeezed James's hand and squealed with delight, and Sarah had felt something inside her crack. She'd tried to back out at week 24. The lawyer the agency provided, provided, as if Sarah had any real representation, had explained it very clearly. The contract was binding. The Hartfields had already paid $20,000. If Sarah breached, she'd owe all of it back plus legal fees. Her mother was mid-treatment. There was no money to return. There was no choice. So Sarah had done what any trapped animal does. She'd gone still. She'd played along. She'd attended the appointments, took the vitamins, avoided alcohol and sushi and soft cheeses. She'd let Victoria put her hand on Sarah's belly to feel kicks that Victoria believed belonged to her. And Sarah had planned. Now, 3 months after a delivery that had nearly killed her, hemorrhaging that left her hospitalized for a week while the Hartfields took Lily home with a night nurse, Sarah was living in their pool house and being paid $30 an hour to hold the child she'd literally built cell by cell from her own body. "You're a miracle worker," Victoria said at the end of the first week, pressing an extra $200 into Sarah's hand. "I've actually slept. Lily adores you. You can't ever leave us." Sarah smiled and pocketed the money. "I have no intention of leaving." The routine established itself quickly. Sarah arrived at 7 when the night nurse left. She bathed Lily, fed her bottles that Sarah prepared to exact specifications, changed diapers, did tummy time, read board books in silly voices. Victoria would drift in and out, taking photos, holding Lily for brief periods before handing her back when the baby fussed. James appeared mainly on weekends, awkward with the tiny human he'd hired Sarah's womb to create. And Lily was Sarah's. Completely, undeniably Sarah's in every moment that mattered. The baby tracked Sarah's movements around the room. She settled at the sound of Sarah's voice. When Sarah sang the lullabies she'd sung during pregnancy, Lily's whole body relaxed into sleep within minutes. Victoria had tried once to sing the same song, and Lily had screamed until she went hoarse. "I don't understand it," Victoria said, frustrated and hurt in a way that made Sarah feel a savage satisfaction she knew was wrong. "I'm her mother." "No," Sarah thought. "No, you're not." The turning point came on a Tuesday in September. Sarah was in the nursery changing Lily's diaper when she heard Victoria on the phone in the hallway. "The surrogate." "God, no, we cut all contact." The agency handled the final payment. She signed all the termination paperwork. A pause. "I know it sounds cold, but it's cleaner this way. She was just the oven, you know? The genetic material is ours. Well, mine. James's sperm, donor egg, my mitochondria. The surrogate was basically just the vessel. Just the vessel." Sarah's hands stilled on the snaps of Lily's honesty. The baby gazed up at her, making the cooing sounds that were becoming more vocal each day, and Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. Not break. Solidify. She'd been playing a passive game, content with stolen moments and the joy of daily contact. But Victoria's words crystallized something Sarah had been avoiding. They would never see her as anything but the help. They would raise Lily to never know that Sarah existed, that Sarah had grown her lungs and her brain and her tiny perfect fingernails. In their story, Lily would simply arrive into their arms, a product they'd purchased and received. That night, Sarah began researching parental rights, surrogacy laws. She discovered the variations were wild. Some states had clear legal frameworks. Others were murky. In New York, where they were, traditional surrogacy where the surrogate's own egg was used gave the surrogate automatic parental rights until she explicitly terminated them. But this wasn't traditional surrogacy. This was gestational. Sarah had no genetic connection to Lily. Except she did have a connection. The research led her down rabbit holes about epigenetics, about how a pregnant person's body doesn't just house a fetus but actively shapes it. The surrogate's diet, stress levels, even thoughts could influence gene expression. The surrogate's cells crossed the placenta and lived in the baby's body for decades. They were called microchimeric cells. Lily carried Sarah inside her at a cellular level. But more than biology, there was the crying. Lily's exclusive bond with Sarah wasn't normal. Sarah found forums where surrogates discussed handoffs, the difficulty of separation, but also the eventual adjustment. Most babies adapted to their parents within days or weeks. Lily was 3 months old and still inconsolable with anyone but Sarah. Sarah started documenting everything. She set her phone to record video during her shifts, capturing the way Lily screamed in Victoria's arms and silenced in hers. She saved text messages from Victoria. Can you come early? Lily's been crying for an hour. Please don't take any days off. I can't handle her alone. You're the only one she wants. She found a lawyer through an online forum. His name was Marcus Chen, and he specialized in reproductive law. His consultation fee was $300. Sarah paid it with money she should have been using to pay down her mother's remaining medical debt. This is going to be nearly impossible, Marcus said, reviewing the contract she'd signed. You terminated your parental rights. The genetic material isn't yours. You were compensated. The courts heavily favor the intended parents in gestational surrogacy cases. What about the baby's welfare? Sarah asked. She's clearly bonded to me. She's in distress without me. Marcus leaned back in his chair. That's your angle, but it's thin. Babies are adaptable. A judge will likely say she needs time to adjust, that your presence is actually preventing that adjustment. They could argue that you continuing as the nanny is making the problem worse. So I should leave? Just abandon her? I'm not saying that. I'm saying we need a different approach. We need to prove the Hartfields are unfit parents, or we need to prove fraud in the original contract, or we need to demonstrate that the surrogacy arrangement itself was unconscionable. Sarah thought about Victoria's silk pajamas and James's BMW. Their spotless home, their financial security, the fact that they'd followed every legal requirement. They're not unfit. They're just not bonded to her. She's like an accessory to them. Being emotionally distant isn't illegal, Marcus said gently. Look, I'll be honest with you. If we pursue this, it will cost at least $50,000 in legal fees. You'll probably lose. And even if you win, they can appeal. This could drag on for years, during which time you'd likely lose your job as their nanny, lose access to Lily entirely, and destroy yourself financially. Sarah sat in silence. $50,000. Years of litigation. Probable failure. But, Marcus continued, if you want to do this, if you're certain, I'll take your case. I'll need a $20,000 retainer to start. $20,000 Sarah didn't have. She left the office feeling hollowed out. That weekend, Victoria and James hosted a dinner party. Sarah was asked to stay late, to keep Lily in the pool house until the guests left. She sat in the small apartment that had become her second home, holding Lily, listening to the laughter and music drifting across the yard. Through the window, she watched beautiful people in expensive clothes drinking wine that cost more than her weekly salary. One of the guests, a woman in a red dress, was pregnant. Sarah watched Victoria touch the woman's belly, her face animated with excitement and advice. Sarah had never told Victoria how lonely her own pregnancy had been, how she'd gone to appointments alone, how she'd eaten dinner alone, how she'd felt the first kicks alone. The Hartfields had attended only the required appointments, treating Sarah with friendly professionalism, as if she were a doctor providing a service rather than a human being growing their child. Lily started fussing, and Sarah automatically began swaying, singing softly. The baby quieted, her small hand grasping Sarah's finger with surprising strength. In that moment, Sarah made her decision. She would find the money. She would sue. She would fight even if it destroyed her, because the alternative was watching Lily grow up yards away, knowing Sarah only as Mary the nanny until the inevitable day when Victoria decided to hire someone cheaper, or they moved to a different house, or Lily got old enough that they didn't need full-time childcare anymore. The alternative was disappearing from Lily's life and spending the rest of her own life wondering what if. Sarah started selling everything. Her car went first, a 10-year-old Honda that gave her $8,000. She took on extra work, babysitting other families' children on weekends, earning a few hundred here and there. She moved out of her apartment and into the pool house full-time, which the Hartfields loved because it meant she was available for night wakings. She stopped buying anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. Coffee became a luxury. New clothes became unthinkable. Her mother noticed. "Sarah, you're wasting away. What's going on?" Sarah couldn't tell her. Her mother would try to talk her out of it, would remind her that they couldn't afford another financial disaster, would say that Sarah needed to move on. So Sarah lied. "I'm fine, Mom. Just saving money." By December, Sarah had scraped together $14,000. She needed 6 more. She took out a loan, the kind with predatory interest rates that would trap her in debt for years, but she was already trapped. At least this trap led toward Lily. She called Marcus Chen. "I have the retainer. Are you sure about this, Sarah?" "I've never been more sure of anything." They filed the lawsuit 2 days before Christmas. The papers were served to the Hartfields on Christmas Eve. Sarah was in the nursery with Lily, reading Goodnight Moon, when she heard Victoria's shriek from downstairs. The confrontation was immediate and brutal. Victoria stormed into the nursery, her face twisted with rage and betrayal. "How dare you? How dare you come into our home, deceive us, and now try to steal our daughter?" "I didn't steal her," Sarah said quietly, holding Lily closer. "I grew her. I carried her. She knows me. You were paid." Victoria's voice climbed higher. "You signed a contract. You agreed to this. You can't just change your mind because you have some psychotic attachment." James appeared behind his wife, his face ashen. "We need you to leave. Now. Pack your things and get out." "You're firing me?" "We're protecting our family from a clearly unstable person," James said. "We'll be getting a restraining order." Sarah looked down at Lily, who was starting to fuss at the tension in the air. "She needs me." "She'll adjust," Victoria said coldly. "Babies are resilient. You being here was a mistake. We should never have hired you. You couldn't find anyone else who could calm her down. We'll manage." Sarah wanted to refuse to leave, to make them call the police, to force a scene. But Marcus had been clear that she needed to appear reasonable, stable, cooperative. She couldn't give them ammunition to paint her as unhinged. So she kissed Lily's forehead, whispered, "I'm coming back for you," and left. She heard the crying start before she reached the stairs. By the time she was in the pool house packing her things, Lily's screams were audible across the yard. They continued as Sarah loaded her car. They were still going when Sarah drove away, and the sound echoed in her head for days. What do you think happens next? Can Sarah possibly win against a wealthy couple with unlimited legal resources? Should she? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take on this because it's about to get even more complicated. The legal battle became Sarah's entire existence. Marcus filed an emergency motion for visitation rights based on the baby's welfare. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the video evidence Sarah had compiled. "Ms. Klein," the judge said, addressing Sarah, "these videos show a baby who is indeed calmer with you than with her legal parents. However, you were employed as her nanny. Of course she's familiar with you. This doesn't constitute grounds for parental rights." "Your Honor," Marcus argued, "this goes beyond typical infant preference. Lily Klein Hartfield has shown signs of severe distress amounting to failure to thrive in Ms. Klein's absence. The pediatrician's records show weight loss, sleep disruption, and excessive crying since Ms. Klein's departure." This was true. Sarah had subpoenaed Lily's medical records. In the 3 weeks since Sarah had left, Lily had lost 8 ounces and dropped percentiles on her growth chart. The Hartfields had taken her to the pediatrician twice for excessive crying. The doctor's notes mentioned possible colic or reflux, but also noted that the parents seemed stressed and possibly not bonding well with the infant. The Hartfield's lawyer, a sharp woman in a power suit that probably cost more than Sarah's retainer, countered smoothly. "Your Honor, what we're seeing is the negative result of Ms. Klein's continued presence. She's prevented the natural bonding process between parents and child. The fact that the baby has challenges now is directly attributable to Ms. Klein's interference. She's essentially created an attachment disorder by insinuating herself into a family where she had no right to be." The judge denied Sarah's motion for visitation but didn't dismiss the case entirely. "I'm ordering a psychological evaluation for all parties and a home study. We'll reconvene in 60 days. 60 days of not seeing Lily. Sarah barely survived them. She took a job at a daycare, surrounding herself with other people's children, trying not to picture Lily crying. At night, she lay awake imagining worst-case scenarios. Lily failing to thrive to the point of hospitalization. The Hartfields, frustrated and overwhelmed, giving up on parenting entirely and hiring a rotation of nannies who wouldn't care the way Sarah did. The psychological evaluation was invasive and humiliating. Sarah sat across from Dr. Patricia Moreno, a court-appointed psychologist, and tried to explain the inexplicable. "I know how it sounds," Sarah said. "I know I look like a crazy person who can't let go. But I'm telling you, there's something different about Lily. She knows me in a way that goes beyond learned familiarity." "Tell me about your childhood," Dr. Moreno said, deflecting. They dug into Sarah's history. Her parents' divorce when she was 7. Her father's absence. Her close relationship with her mother. The psychologist took notes, no doubt building a profile of someone with abandonment issues, someone who saw in Lily a chance to recreate the family she'd lost. But Sarah also knew they were evaluating the Hartfields. She clung to hope.